Vintage Digicams are back, and I have 3 here from Canon that's going to make your head spin. So the first Digicam we're going to look at is the G1X. This was actually marketed to professional photographers who appreciated quality, so they put a lot of effort into this camera. Photographers who wanted a second camera to carry around like an everyday carry type of camera. The second camera, this is actually a camera, although it just looks like a lens. It's a bizarre camera, one that I don't know if we've ever seen anything like this before.
Not since medieval times have we seen anything like this.
And finally, this third camera, it's from 20 years ago, but just because it's old doesn't mean it can't be really cool. So the G1X, what makes this camera unique? Well, to start with, Canon made a special sensor for this camera, much like they did for the newly released V1, which I reviewed. It's about the size of a micro Four Thirds sensor. It's 1.5 inches, so much bigger than your typical cell phone size sensor that you find in your average run-of-the-mill Digicams. And they didn't cram a lot of megapixels in there, 14 megapixels, which means that each photo site can capture more light. So they really were going after superior image quality by coming up with this camera. It's deceptively small, but it's also deceptively heavy. I wish you could actually feel this thing and feel how it's constructed. It's like a brick. When I compare it to the V1, which is the new Canon camera, which also has a specially designed micro Four Thirds size sensor, the G1X feels heavier because of its metal construction. This has more of a, doesn't feel cheap, the V1, but it's definitely more plasticky. And the G1X just feels more rock solid. And because of that, because of its weight, it's a little heavy to carry around every day. And also there's a lot of protuberances and edges on the camera, so it's definitely not gonna fit in your pocket. But that's not to say it's not a handsome camera. When you compare it up against the V1 by Canon, I don't know. I just think the G1X is cooler looking, don't you? There's just something about it, even from the top angle. There's something about these vintage cameras, which the new cameras are nice, but it's not the same. Yeah, so about that sensor again, a specially designed sensor in this camera, only 20% smaller than an APS-C size sensor, can capture 4 times as much light as the sensor in your standard Digicam. So the G in the G1X signifies it was part of the PowerShot G line, a very popular line of cameras that Canon came out with, which they discontinued. But it looks like they're going to be coming out again with a photography-centered camera. We'll talk more about that a little later in the video. This was introduced in 2012. Now it has a built-in lens with a 28 to 112 millimeter equivalent zoom. Certainly a longer zoom than the newer V1. The aperture is 2.8 on the wide end to 5.8 on the tele end, so not terrible, but not the lowest light camera. It's a small camera, but inside this camera they were able to cram in image stabilization, a nice pop-up flash, and you don't see that on a lot of cameras anymore. Yeah, V1, you listening? There is an optical viewfinder, so you don't get any electronic information. Even the framing is not completely accurate, especially if you're close to your subject because of parallax. It's kind of funny because when you look in the viewfinder, you can even see a little bit of the lens. So very old school. Now there is a hot shoe on the camera as well if you wanted to add an external flash or external accessories. It has a 3-stop built-in ND filter. It has a fully articulating 3-inch screen, so about the same size screen as you get in a modern camera. Obviously it doesn't have the same resolution that the modern screens have. It has continuous shooting, 14-bit RAW, which is nice, and it also shoots 1920 by 1080 video. Take a look. Okay. It has your top PASM dial, a very nice exposure compensation dial, which clicks in very nicely. When you're watching your pictures back, it can take a while to go from one to the other. So it's a little slow, I should say very slow in that area. Look how long it takes. So if you're looking for a really solid vintage Digicam, and it even has like a nice grip, built like a tank, really nice image quality, you may be pleasantly surprised with the G1X. You get some cool filters too, like vivid, nostalgia for that old-time look, and black and white, and the fisheye effect, which certainly doesn't work here. This is the Canon G1X. You probably are pretty surprised, right? That it's such an old camera, right? So 1 year later, after the G1X was introduced, it's 2013. Nelson Mandela passed away and Pope Francis was elected. Canon wasn't concerned about those things because they were coming up with something like this, the N series of PowerShot cameras. Look at this thing. Just look at this thing. One of my subscribers actually brought this to my attention. I didn't even know it existed until I looked into it, and I was like, wow, I gotta check this out. You could also get it in white. Small and white. Now, as cool as this camera may look, I would call it a combination of interesting, bizarre, and annoying, all jumbled together. So why is this interesting? Well, I think that speaks for itself. I mean, it's tiny. You literally can fit it anywhere in a shirt pocket. You can hide it. I don't know how they actually fit a flash on here too. And that flash doubles as an LED light for shooting video. Pretty cool. The annoying part is, well, there is really hardly any controls on this thing. You basically have to operate the camera from the menu on the rear screen. Now, the nice thing is that the screen does tilt, but it doesn't tilt all the way up for selfies. Now, Canon introduced the next model after that, tilted all the way up. Instagram was really getting started, and that's why Canon came out with this. See, I just hit the shutter by accident. I don't know if you heard that. There is a touch shutter on the back, and since your fingers really have no place to go, if you activate that feature, you'll be taking pictures all over the place, just random pictures. So that's part of the annoying thing. So this uses a micro SD card, which makes sense because there's really no room for an SD card slot anywhere here. It uses a very non-standard looking NB9L battery, which you'll have to find. Despite the small size of the camera, Canon somehow managed to squeeze an 8x optical zoom in this camera, which is pretty incredible. And the zoom quality is pretty decent, as you can see. Some shots do come out a little soft though. Also, they put a digital zoom in as well. Now, I'm never a big fan of digital zoom. As you start using it, you can see that picture does degrade. So there's two ways to take a picture. You could touch the rear screen also by pressing down on the button in front. The silver ring activates the shutter. Now, it does take some getting used to. The ring is very thin. I mean, there's not a lot of room for these controls, so you got to find it. And the shutter is, you have to press in the exact spot, which is right near the ring. So a lot of times you'll be zooming and pressing the shutter button. That's the price you pay for something really small.
How small?
Too small.
A very unique feature of the N line is the creative shot. It's a little button here on the side, and what this does is it randomly will apply filters to your pictures. You can't pick which ones they are. It'll make about 4 or 5 pictures from each shot and apply these filters. So it's sort of, you never know what you're going to get, as Forrest Gump would say. Canon did this also on the ELPH line, which is a much more current line of cameras they recently discontinued. And I kind of like that because it saves you a lot of time and effort if you don't want to put filters in, and maybe it's a filter you didn't think of and it'll crop in on the photos too. So unfortunately, if you use that, you can't use the flash in conjunction with it. So you either have to decide whether it's on or off. And since this camera is really small, it's not going to have the same size sensor that the G1X has. This has a small cell phone size sensor as well, but I would say, considering that, the pictures aren't half bad, really. All right. And to set this apart from cell phone cameras, Canon included the Digic 5 processor, which gave it better quality. Now remember, in 2013, the iPhone 5 was the current model, and for Android it was the Galaxy S4. So I know you want one of these things, and they are available on eBay $300 if you get everything, the box complete. Obviously you can get these cheaper, very cool, very different. Now this camera, the S80, is the oldest camera in the group. We're going back to 2005. The first YouTube video was launched, a good thing.
All right, so here we are, one of the elephants.
Hurricane Katrina hit, bad thing. But a really good thing is the introduction of the Canon S80. This holds a special place in my heart, this camera. I know there are a lot of other Digicams that look like this, but I used this quite a bit in the 2000s, took a lot of photos and videos, and I was always very happy with the results I got. But what I think is really cool and different about this model is, believe it or not, the movie mode. There was a high definition movie mode, wasn't quite full HD, and what was really cool was the low light ability. There was something very filmic about it. A lot of these cameras around this time would do horrible in low light, but I found that this camera, although there was grain that picked up, look at this, this is in a Las Vegas nightclub, really dark, and although there's some grain, it sort of looks like film grain, and it's not a smooth 30 frames per second, so there's a little bit of a motion stutter, but I just thought it was really good in low light situations. I would bring it to restaurants and annoy people, and just bring it all over as really like an everyday camera for photos and movies. I don't think it was weather sealed, but that didn't stop me from bringing it everywhere, even if it was raining. I called it my life cam. I even brought it to watch my car get washed. Here's footage from a piano bar that I've been going to for years in New York City with the S80, and then here I'd shot it with a modern camera, a Kodak FC55. And to my eye, it looks way darker than the 20-year-old S80. This camera, very small and pocketable, like other Digicams, 28 to 100 millimeter zoom, so definitely covers a wide range, certainly more than the new V1 Canon. Are we going backwards? The CCD also was a little bigger than a 1/2 inch CCD, so somewhat bigger than other Digicams at the time, which were less than a 1/2 inch. Has a nice 2.8 inch rear screen. Of course, it didn't tilt or flip or anything like that, and there was an optical viewfinder. Again, no electronic viewfinder, but at least for framing, if it's sunny and you want to get an idea of what you're going to be shooting, it has that, and it's really nice to have that. A built-in flash too. Don't see those much anymore either. In addition to all of that, there was a lot of shooting modes, aperture priority, shutter priority, so if you wanted to get creative and control your parameters, you could do that. I always liked Canon's colors. Autofocus seemed to be good enough. The camera has continuous shooting, and for some reason, even though this is the oldest camera in the lot, as I mentioned, the G1X was really slow playing back pictures. For some reason, I could play back pictures quicker on this camera than I can on the G1X. Not sure why, again, not sure if that was an SD card thing, but this just seems just to be a really snappy camera. At the time of launch, this camera was $500 US. You can get it a lot cheaper today if you want it. Among your big choice of vintage Digicams that are out there, I recommend this one. It just has a nice charm, nice pictures, cool movie mode if you like to shoot in low light too. So these three Canon vintage Digicams are very cool. Are we gonna ever see cool Digicams like this again? Well, probably not this cool, but Canon, I give them credit, recently came out with the V1, a point and shoot camera with a brand new sensor. But stay tuned, because there are strong rumors that Canon is going to be coming out with something very similar to the G line, but maybe with a longer zoom, maybe with an EVF, maybe with a flash. So we may be getting closer to what these were again. People are clamoring for these kinds of cameras. Prices are shooting up on eBay. What's going on? Manufacturers, start to listen. We want these again. Thanks so much for watching. If you got a bit of nostalgia, do hit like and subscribe. At Tech to Remember, old technology merges with new technology. We'll see you in the next video. Oh, there's no viewfinder. Gotta use this.
You never let me down. You turn